Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you my best tips and tools to inspire you to create beautiful home decor on a budget. Today I am here with 5 coastal beachy Dollar Tree DIYs. I'm very excited for these now. If you don't like the coastal beachy decor, you can still use these ideas, change the colors up slightly, and make them for whatever theme or color scheme you choose. So with all that being said, let's get crafting. For DIY number 1, we're going to make this beach tic-tac-toe. This is something I've been wanting to make for a while. We are using the 2 colored boxes of tumbling tower blocks that are currently available from Dollar Tree. Now we're going to make squares. Ultimately, we're going to make squares with 12 of each block. So here I'm making rows of 6. 2 of these rows will be glued together to make a single square. So I'm going to make 5 big squares of these dark brown blocks, which means I need 60 of these dark brown blocks. So I am making 10 sets of 6 here. I'm just gonna lay them all out, and then we are going to wood glue these together. I believe what I'm going to do is glue sets of 3, and then once those are dry, we'll put 2 sets together to make 6, and then we'll glue our 2 rows of 6 together to make a square of 12. So again, I'm using 60 of the dark brown. Of course, you could use whatever color you want. If you have more of the unpainted ones, you could do all unpainted blocks and paint your squares, whatever you'd like. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with the natural color blocks, but I only need 4 big squares of the natural. So I'm going to need 48 of the natural blocks. Again, here I'm gluing them together in sets of 3. And then once those sets of 3 are dry, we'll move on to the next step. Coming back to our dark brown blocks now, my sets of 3 are dry. So now I'm gluing 2 sets of 3 together to make a row of 6. And I'm going to do this with all of my dark brown blocks that we have glued together in sets of 3 will now be sets of 6. And we'll also do the same thing with our natural blocks. All of our sets of 3 will be glued together in sets of 6. Okay, and now that our sets of 6 are dry, we're going to glue 2 sets of 6 together in the middle there to make a big square. We'll do this for all 5 of our dark brown squares and 4 of our natural block squares. Now, once all 9 of our block squares were dry and completely together with that wood glue, I am going to take my sanding tool here, and I'm going to distress these up a little bit. I want them to look a little more beachy, and I'm also trying to even out any uneven edges between some of the blocks. So I believe here I'm using 120, which is pretty rough with the sandpaper. I'm going to do the 120 on all of my squares, front and back, and then also on the uneven edges, and then smooth them out with 400. Now you can see I've got my 9 squares laid out how I'm going to want them for my tic-tac-toe board. I wanted to add just a little bit of color to this piece, and so on my natural squares I'm using Waverly chalk paint in the color blue just to add a little soft blue to this project. I'm only painting the very top of each of these 4 squares, and then once they're dry we'll come back in and sand them a little bit as well. Now that all of our squares are sanded and ready to go, I'm going to start putting them together with wood glue. You can see, I think that I have the dark brown squares, the blocks are going horizontally, and then the blue squares, I have the blocks going vertically. Now, these are still tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, so just do your best to get them as straight as possible. You can see I'm using that level ruler there to try to keep everything straight. I have my bottom row, and now I'm going to start gluing my middle row on top of that. Now that the bottom game board is glued together, I also want to make a frame for it. So to start out, I'm going to make 8 sticks of blocks that are 6 blocks long. So we're going to glue 6 here end to end, and I'm going to do that 8 times. Once I had my 8 sticks of 6, I did glue them together in pairs. Here you can see I have a set that is 6 blocks long and 2 blocks wide. So I'm going to end up with 4 pieces like this, one for each side of my board. You can see that once the wood glue is sufficiently dried, I am going to sand and distress these pieces as well to match the rest of the game board. Then one at a time, I'm going to put some wood glue along the bottom edge, and we're going to stand this up and glue it right to that outside edge of our square, making sure it's held in place. And then we're just going to do one of these at a time, moving slowly so pieces don't come off. We'll turn the board and then attach the other 3 pieces. Now for my beach theme tic-tac-toe, I got 2 packages of the starfish from Dollar Tree and 2 packages of the sand dollars. I was really happy to discover once I opened them that they are plastic, which is great because they will be less breakable. And you could use any type of pieces for a similar tic-tac-toe board in any other theme or for any other season or holiday. If you're stopping by my channel for the first time today, welcome. I sure am glad that you found me. I hope you like what you see and you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. I hope everyone taps that bell. Just check and make sure that your notifications haven't been changed. Set your notifications to all so you should be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live here on my channel. For DIY number 2, we're going to make this beach palette coaster set using 4 of these square pallets from Dollar Tree as well as a crate. I'm going to use some paint, some fastener dots, and a few of my mini stencils from Magnolia Design Co. I'm sticking with the pool blue, and I'm also going to use some mineral gray on these palettes. I'm going to use both colors on each of the palettes, just deciding which sections I want to be each color. And we're going to do 2 palettes with the blue at the top and the bottom and the sides, and then the other 2 with mineral gray at the top and the bottom and on the sides. Then in the middle, I'm going to paint the rest with the opposite color. I will go a little bit inside each of those cracks there and get the little pieces that are showing. But again, this is completely up to you what colors you want to use. If you want to paint them at all, maybe you just want to do antique wax or just leave them the natural wood. You could do that as well. Now this is the crate that I had in my stash to hold my coasters, and I wasn't too excited about the laser cut, so I decided to take some jute twine and I'm going to wrap it around the crate. I'm going to leave the crate unpainted, and I'm going to add some beachy texture by wrapping this jute twine around the crate to cover the entire laser cut part. I really love how this looks with the twine. I wish I would have had a couple little shells that I could have glued to the front as well, so feel free to do that. Now on the back side, I'm just going to do one solid color. I think I went with whatever the opposite maybe was of the front main color, but just paint them whatever color you'd like. I just didn't want it to look unfinished. Again, just like with DIY number 1, once all the painting was done, I did take my little sander and distress the edges, give it a little bit more of a beach distressed look around the edges on each of the individual pieces there, and just a little bit on the surface as well. And we'll do this to all 4 of our coasters on the front and the back. Next, I chose 4 of our summer mini stencils that had kind of a beachy theme, and I'm going to stencil those on with tanned leather. That's this dark brown. You can, of course, use whatever color of chalk paste you'd like. I thought it would just be kind of fun to add a few little words to each of our 4 coasters. Now, once those were dry, I did spray a clear matte spray on both the front and the back of each of our coasters. Then I'm taking some of these fastener dots that I've had from Dollar Tree in my stash for a while, and I don't have little felt stickers for the bottom, so I'm just using the fuzzier of the 2 pieces of the fastener dots, one on each corner on the bottom of my coasters, to give them a little bit of padding. And we'll do this to all 4 of our coasters, and then we'll be all done with this project. And I love how these turned out. I love how cute they are for decoration, but that they are also functional for your summer drinks. DIY number 3 is one that has been requested, a clothespin wreath, and I'm going to do this one in a beachy theme using this wire wreath form and clothespins from Dollar Tree and these wood letters from Hobby Lobby. So I decided I wanted a little bit of jute twine around my wreath here, just where each of the little cross pieces is. So this is the back. I'm securing my twine, and then I'm just going to do that one length in the middle, one length to the right of it, and then one length to the left of it. So kind of just decoratively covering up the wire cross pieces, and then I'm going to glue that and trim it down. We're going to do this on all 6 of those cross pieces on our wreath. So the way I'm doing my wreath here is I'm going to use 60 clothespins. I'm going to use 72 clothespins. I'm going to use 12 in each of the 6 sections. You can see how I'm doing one. I'm clamping on the middle 2 wires, and then the inside one is on the inside 2 wires. So kind of giving it some dimension and a little bit of interest there. One of the reasons I wanted to put the twine, besides covering up the cross wires, is just to need less clothespins. I think the pack from Dollar Tree is 54, so you will need 2 packs for this, but I love how it looks, especially with that jute twine between every section of 12. So I'm going to go ahead and do my 12 clothespins on each of the 6 sections. Next, I decided I wanted to add a little color to some of my clothespins. So I'm going to do every third clothespin with the pool blue. I'm going to do every third one with mineral gray. And then the third one of each set of 3, I'm going to leave the natural. Now, I could have painted them before they were on the wreath, but I'll say that it was kind of nice having the wreath holding all the clothespins so then they weren't moving around while I was trying to paint them. As long as you have a thin enough brush, you should be able to paint the individual clothespins without too much of a mess. Here you can see I'm just going ahead and counting and putting a little dab of paint on all the ones I'm going to paint blue, so I don't have to keep counting and I don't want to mess up. So I'm going to go do all of my blue ones, then I'll come back in and paint all of my mineral gray, and then, like I said, leave the rest of them the natural wood color. These skinny wood letters are from Hobby Lobby. I've used them before. You get 2 in each pack when you buy them. And I'm just using my antique wax and the baby wipe method to make them kind of a dark stained wood color. And the last step is just going to be to glue on our letters and our 2 plastic starfish that I had left over from the tic-tac-toe. The hardest part of this is trying to find where to glue the letters down because the clothespins are a little uneven, but just put some glue on and then place them down, let it dry, and if you need to reinforce with more glue, you can. But I love how this looks with the dark brown stained wood. Kind of looks like driftwood to me on the painted clothespins. And here it is, the finished wreath. I love how this turned out. I love the colors. And this is already hanging in my downstairs bathroom that has a beach theme. If you love budget home decor DIY videos like this, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and leaving 1 or 2 comments. That lets YouTube know people are enjoying my content, and then they will show it to more and more viewers. For DIY number 4, we're going to make these really simple beachy candle cups. Again, if you want to make these using this idea but not beach theme, you can definitely change up the colors. We're using a pencil cup and a push pin cup from Dollar Tree in the school supply area, and then 2 of these glass candlesticks. And we'll add a little jute twine. So I am covering my glass candlesticks with a generous layer of Mod Podge. I like to do this and let it dry sufficiently. This just helps the paint be able to stick a little bit better to the glass. So I always do this as a first step when painting glass. So in keeping with the theme of the rest of the DIYs in this video, I'm using mineral gray and pool blue. The cups here are metal and they're already gray, but they're kind of shiny. So I'm going to go ahead and paint them quickly with this mineral gray just to mute down the shine, make them look a little bit more beachy, a little bit more worn. And I really like how the paint just kind of dulls that shine a little bit of the metal. Now that the Mod Podge is dry on the glass candlesticks, we can go ahead and paint a layer of our pool blue chalk paint by Waverly on top of that Mod Podge and then let that dry as well. Once that paint was dry, I decided to distress my candlesticks a little bit with my sander, and then I'm also going to use a chippy brush and some truffle, which is a dark brown Waverly chalk paint, to add to the beachy effect of our candle cups. Next, I decided to add just a little bit of the brown to the metal cups as well, mostly just around the edges. You can't really see where I put it on the mesh part, but just trying to blend it in a little bit to match now the candlesticks. The next step, of course, is optional, but I'm taking now a thinner jute twine. This one is from Dollar Tree. The other one I used previously in the wreath was from Walmart. It's a little bit thicker. I'm going to just take my jute twine around this flatter part of the candlestick here at the top, again, just to add to the beachy theme for this project. Our final step then is going to be to use some of this super glue gel from Dollar Tree. I'm going to put it around the top edge of each of my candlesticks and then place that upside down into the middle of the bottom of our 2 metal cups. I am going to go around with the gel a little bit more and then just let these sit for a couple hours to make sure that super glue is completely dried. And here's our finished candle cups. I just threw a couple battery powered tea lights in here. You could put whatever candles or whatever you want inside to decorate. And I love that you could make these for any theme. If you are not already following me also on Facebook, I encourage you to go there, find Monarch Mom DIY, and follow my page there. I do different DIYs than what I'm doing here on YouTube, so you can get twice as much DIY content. And DIY number 5 is going to be this frame and tray display shelf using 4 of these frames with metal and 3 of these rectangular wood trays from Dollar Tree. We're going to use our same pool blue as well as some antique wax here. We're also going to use a piece of the adhesive wallpaper I'll show you in a minute. So on our trays, I'm just using the baby wipe method. I am staining everywhere except for the 2 short ends on the outside because that's what we're going to attach to our frames. So using the baby wipe makes it so much easier because you're putting it on and wiping it off kind of at the same time. And so that is my preferred method for doing the antique wax. You can see I'm also doing the inside of the tray and the top edge there. We're going to do this to all 3 of our wood trays and then set them aside to dry. Next, coming to our 4 frames, we're going to carefully take some pliers and remove the stand from the back, making sure to pull gently and remove also the bracket. We're eventually going to need the backs of these frames to be as flat as possible. So we're going to remove all 4 of these. Then we're going to take the little prongs here and bend them up so we can remove the metal part and the backing from the inside of our frames so that we can go ahead and paint our frames. I'm also going to try to sand where the little bracket was attached, again, to try to get the backs of our frames as flat as possible. Now that we have all those removed, I'm going to take my pool blue, and on each of the frames, I'm going to do the pool blue around the outside edges of the frame, the inside edges, and the very front. Once those were all painted and dried, I'm going to distress again with my little sander around the edges and also the front of each of my frames. Then once that's done, putting the metal and the backing back in and then just cleaning up the back side. This actually isn't going to end up mattering because I'm going to be covering up the back anyway, but I just wanted to clean up any extra paint that had gotten around to the back of the frame. We'll do this for all 4 of our picture frames. Now, once these are all cleaned up and sanded, I'm going to use a combination of wood glue and hot glue. I'm going to glue these together in pairs, standing vertically like you see here. Next, I'm going to take this wood piece of adhesive wallpaper from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to trace the back of my 2 frames, cut that out, and my idea is to attach this to the back side of the frames just to make it look a little nicer. So I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of this wallpaper. When I flipped this over to attach the wallpaper, I realized that these little metal pieces really needed to come out because they were going to keep me from being able to get the wallpaper nice and flat. So using my pliers, I am gently as I can, removing the metal pieces from all 4 of the frames. And then once I have those metal pieces out, you're going to see I'm going to put some hot glue on the inside of the frame there to reattach the metal piece and the backing so that they don't fall out. So this was an extra step that I didn't anticipate, but I was really glad I did it because I think it's going to make for a much nicer result. Now that I have the back side of my frames nice and flat, I can take the paper off the back of this wallpaper and I'm able to press it down and get it pretty flat on the back of my frame sets. And you can see here I had a little bit of it hanging over, so no big deal. I can just trim that away with scissors, or I can use my little sander to clean up any of those edges like you'll see me doing here. So we're going to end up with 2 pieces like this that has the 2 frames on the front and this piece of wood wallpaper on the back. Now that we have all of our individual pieces ready, we're going to start putting this together. I'm putting hot glue on one short side of one of my trays, having it flat on my table, and then lining up one of the sets of frames on that end. I'm actually going to end up gluing all 3 trays to this one side of our display, and then we'll glue the other side on. So I've got one tray all the way at the bottom. One tray is going to be all the way at the top, and then we will center the other one right in the middle. Now that we have all 3 trays in place on one of our sides, we're going to take some hot glue again and just put glue now on the other side of each of the 3 trays, and then line up our other set of frames to be the other side of our display. And I'm just quickly pressing it, making sure they're centered. I know the angle isn't great right now, but I think you can see what we're doing. So now we've got the trays in the middle and the 2 frames stacked for either side of this display. I love how this looked. I'm so glad I took the time to put that wallpaper on the inside. I think it just gives it a nice finished look. This would be great in my downstairs guest bathroom, actually, putting some either decorative elements like this or some little washcloths, hand soaps, lotions, things like that when you have guests. Thanks again so much for joining me today. As always, I'd love to know which of these projects was your favorite, so please let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Take care.